Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good day. My name is Hisma Fahada and here I am would like to present my paper research with the title of the Indonesian college students' perceptions on death penalty as a punishment for sexual offenders. The first part that I'm going to explain is the introduction itself. So, sexual harassment has caught the spotlight and became the main issue of the entire world in these recent years. Some cases in the past era didn't get much recognition due to the victims' fear of social sanctions. However, nowadays, the narrative inside the society has been slowly changing. People start to gain awareness and began to side with the victim and contemplated what kind of punishment that is proper for those sexual offenders. In any case, it has also become a major debate on whether we should use the death penalty as a punishment or not. Although there have been many journals delving into the realm of implementing the death penalty to sexual offenders, most of them only capture the point of view of lawmakers. There has been a lack of research in gathering the views and opinions of the public, especially college students who more likely had to engage in proximity with sexual offenders. This study have not yet been done inside Indonesia. Thus, the writer wants to talk to college students, especially in Indonesia, in order to obtain their unique perspective about this topic. Thus, this study explores students' point of view on the particular topic. It aims to reveal 1. Students' understanding on sexual offense, and 2. Students' perspective towards death penalty as a punishment for a sexual offender. To help the research, this study presents the following question. The first one is how do university students perceive the idea of sexual offense in general? And then the second one is how do university students feel about using the death penalty as a punishment for sexual offenders? Alright, moving on to the literature review. It is divided into 2 main parts. The first one is the theoretical frameworks, and then the second one is empirical review. So, the theoretical frameworks is also divided into 3 sections. The first one is the definitions of death penalty, and then the second one is the explanation on how punishment for sexual offenders works, and then the last one, or the third one, is the restriction of death penalty as a punishment itself. So, the first one, the definition of death penalty. Death penalty, or also known as a capital punishment, is a sanctions that made by the government, and then the practice of it is a person actually being put to death by the state as a punishment for the crime that they commit. And then the second one is how punishment for sexual offenders works. There are already a lot of law and regulations that has been made by the government from all over the world in order to resolve the sexual offense. Aside from the written law, there are also something that we call it as the social sanctions itself. And then the last one, the restrictions for death penalty. So basically, the law said that using death penalty in America is no longer allowed to be used as a punishment for criminals if 1. The criminals is mentally retarded, 2. The criminals is below the age of 18 when they did the crime, and then 3rd, there is no death victim in the crime. Now I'm going to talk to you about the empirical review. So basically, based on the study by Rick Dierenfeld, Samantha Scott, Gil Ayles, Jared Rosenberg, and Meredith Smith in 2020, it is known that the student perceptions of choosing what side they are on is influenced or being shaped by their biological sex, political standings, major of college they are choosing, the fear of doing crime, and parents' level of education about how death penalty should or shouldn't be applied in law. There is a correlation between the aspect that they used in analyzing the research and the model of analyzing theory that I choose. In that research, they state that approximately 60% of the sample did not support the death penalty as a sentencing option for any victim age category. Furthermore, according to Akbar Ibn Sharif, Francisca Winda and Keisha Anissa in 2020, death penalty is seen as a cruel act to begin with because it violates the human rights law. There are reasons why it needs to be abolished. The first one is because the death penalty is irreversible and can create mistakes. The second one, it does not even lessen the crime rates. And then the last one, it is often used within mass justice system. It is also seen as a discriminatory punishment. Now I'm going to explain to you about the research methods that I use. The quantitative research is using methods that employ surveys or experimentations to collect knowledge on a particular topic. The informal questions needed for the questionnaire in order to gaining more comfortable situations. The study's target population was college students all around Indonesia, with a total of 20 college students. The questionnaire itself will be given by the authors by sending the link of forms for college students to participate in the study. The link will be distributed digitally using Google Forms that can be shared through several platforms such as Twitter, WhatsApp, Line, and Instagram. The data that will be collected from the form will be taken by the researchers for further analysis and will be delivered with some explanations. And of course, the researchers will make a conclusion about it. Now moving on to the findings that I found of this research, the data that are obtained is separated into two aspects such as multiple questions and Likert scale. The multiple questions. From the first questions, we can see that all of the participants claiming they are understanding about sexual harassment by giving yes as an answer. However, it does not close the possibility that some respondents only know the surface of the topic itself. Therefore, judging from these charts, presentations, I do believe that all of the participants at least familiar with the words of sexual harassment. It is like they note actions that can be categorized as sexual harassment itself. And then for the second questions, we can see that the majority of the answer is no. It indicates that most of the respondents feels the existing penalties or law in status quo right now is not enough to solve the problem. Nevertheless, there is a percentage about 10% from respondents that feel satisfied enough with the current law. And then looking at the third question's result, we can see that majority of the participants understand about the meaning of death penalty and know what kind of punishment it is. Therefore, I assume that most of the participants already get information about how death penalty works. In some point, about 10% data inform us on how some people don't exactly know what death penalty is. The fourth question's result has yet the slightest differences between yes and no as the answer. Although the difference is only 10%, this chart shows us that majority of people don't really agree with using death penalty as a punishment. This is the question that I was looking for the answer the most and become the main topic of to analyze in this paper. The little differences show us that even in the status quo right now, there are two sides of people who's having different perspective about this matter. And then the last question's results show us that 70% of the society do agree by using death penalty, it may give deterrent effect towards other people or at least make them think twice before do such actions. On the other hand, the 30% society think that by using death penalty doesn't really give an impact towards other criminals. Alright, after talk about those 5 questions, now we're moving on to the Likert scale. The first question's results from the Likert scale show us how all of the respondents agree that sexual offenders can be called as criminals, with the percentage of very agree reach 95% and the other 5% is agree. The second question's results show us that most of the respondents very agree with the effectiveness that might occur by using death penalty as a punishment. And then in the second place with 30%, both agree and disagree are being chosen by the respondents. Looking at the third question's result, we can see that 45% respondents are very agree that using death penalty as punishment will give deterrent effect towards the other criminals, followed by the option agree in the second option with 30%, and the rest 25% are stated disagree towards the deterrent effect topic. The fourth one has a very diverse answers, with the best answers are agree, which gets a percentage of 50%. The very agree option has a percentage of 30%, which makes it the second most preferred choice. And in the third place, there is a disagree options with a percentage of 15%, and the last 5% are very disagree. The last question's results show us that most answers are agree with a percentage of 50%, then followed by the option disagree as much as 35%. And the last one is the very disagree options with a percentage of only 5%. Now moving on to the discussion, the majority of the answer actually disapprove the usage of death penalty, ladies and gentlemen. Some students argue that using death penalty is not the only suitable punishment for those sexual offenders. People who disagree with the statement is because they tend to see the death penalty as a punishment that didn't give any significant impact, such as lowering the crime rates or murder rates. This is because they see that there is no use to kill another person and might give the burden thoughts towards the victim because they might think that it was their fault, the offender's death. This shows that the current law that established in the status quo is not enough to solve the sexual harassment issue. There is a similarity between this study's result with the Rick Dierenfeld's study that shows 60% of US college students disapprove using death penalty. This research also proved that the majority of Indonesian college students is also disagree with using death penalty as a punishment. In conclusion, this survey states that the majority of Indonesian college students have a very good perceptions of the meaning of sexual harassment cases and know exactly what is the topic about, and then the majority of Indonesian college students choose to not using death penalty as a punishment for those sexual offenders. However, it does not close the possibility that some have the perceptions that they are agree using death penalty as a punishment because the deterrent effect that can be benefited from using death penalty. And then sending the narrative towards the others too is also can be profited by using the death penalty. For the benefit itself, the writers believe that this study might give several benefits in many aspects. The first and main benefit from this paper is that we can see the Indonesian college sides towards the related cases, and then this study also gives benefits towards the lawmakers in Indonesia to understand about what actually happened in the status quo right now and how the law that is established is not enough to tackle the problem. For the writer itself, the benefit that I can get is to fulfill the task for my paper presentations score and satisfy my curiosity about the related cases. I think that's all from me. Thank you for listening to me, especially to my paper presentation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.